I firmly believe that this is a good football team. We've got offensively, we can move the ball. Obviously, we didn't very well today, and defensively, when we're playing good, we're pretty darn good. And special teams, same thing. So we just got to stick with it, I believe. We still got a lot of time left. We just got to get going and got to continue to win some games. I firmly believe that this is a good football team.
Here we are again. The Minnesota Vikings are 1-3 through 4 games, and they are the only 1-3 team in the NFL currently, and NFL history for that matter, to have more points scored through 4 games than they do given up with that record. The problem for this boils down to a man who does not produce results and whose team is often the butt of many stats similar to this. As you can see, the title of today's video is Mike Zimmer Should Be Fired, and we will break down everything in today's video as to why he should be and why he is as good as gone. Now let's begin. I'll go ahead and ask the easy question of what do NFL teams play for? The Super Bowl, right? Now, let me ask this question and go from there. Can a Mike Zimmer coached team ever win a Super Bowl? And at this point, the answer is a definitive no, and that ship sailed a long time ago. Since Mike Zimmer has taken over as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, he is lifetime, and this is including teams with winning records in 2021, so the losses to the Bengals, Cardinals, and Browns could eventually become losses to a team with losing records, though I don't think that will happen for any of them. So FYI, they are included in this stat. But Mike Zimmer is lifetime 17-41 against above 500 teams, and winning 17 of 58 total games boils down to the Vikings winning 29% of the time against teams that are at or above 500. And by the way, I already know what's coming, as it is always the conversation around the quarterback. So since Kirk Cousins has taken over, the Vikings are 5-21 over the last 4 years against 500 or better teams, and they were 12-20 before Kirk came to Minnesota in the years 2014 through 2017. Now, the 12-20 may not sound that bad, but when you dive into this further and say, wow, Kirk must be the problem, even though he does deserve some of the blame, not all of it though, 2017 was a clear outlier, and they were 4-1 against 500 or better teams, so that 12-20 quickly comes down to 8-16 before Kirk was there. Again, that excludes the clear outlier year in which they went to the NFC Championship game under Mike Zimmer. Now, I realize that is a lot of information I just threw at you, so to sum this up, Zim, excluding one clear year where he was far and away better than any other year of his head coaching career, in which the team got pummeled by 31 points in the biggest game of the season, by the way, in true Zimmer fashion, they are 8-16 against teams with winning records outside of the Kirk Cousins era. So the reason that I included this stat was to kind of show that while yes, Kirk Cousins does deserve some blame, it's not like the Vikings were a absolute juggernaut before Kirk got there. I mean, they were good in 2017, but it's not like they were just kicking 500 and above teams' rear ends week in and week out, and there was a clear problem before Kirk even got there with Mike Zimmer-led teams consistently beating good teams. And all of these stats regarding Mike Zimmer's record against winning teams revolve back to the point and the initial question I asked of, can a Mike Zimmer-led team win a Super Bowl? The year that he had the best shot at it was clearly in 2017, and a miracle finish was both the best thing that happened to the franchise and the worst at the same time. Now, as a Vikings fan, I can definitively say at the moment when Stephon Diggs crossed the end zone line to beat the Saints, and then the helmet toss and everything that ensued was without a doubt one of the best feelings of my life from a fan's perspective. There has not been a game like that since, and probably won't be for some time for Vikings fans. And we're speaking from Vikings fans, so the Hopkins Hail Murray play was great, again, not a Vikings play, which is what we're going for here. But the reality is, when looking back at the Minneapolis Miracle, you have to ask this question: why were the Vikings ever in this position to begin with? They were absolutely throttling the Saints in the first half, and this was a game that people honestly forget. The Vikings were up 17-0. And in typical Mike Zimmer fashion, he almost found a way to blow this big lead and nearly lost a game that, let's be honest, 4 years later, the Vikings probably should have lost this game. Now, this does not take away from how exciting the Minneapolis Miracle was at the time, but the Saints kicked the you-know-what out of the Vikings in the second half and outscored them 24-6 in those first 29 minutes and 50 seconds until the miracle happened. This brings us back to the point of Mike Zimmer does not win big games, and when he does, in the rare occasion that he does, he certainly cannot string 2 or 3 together in a row, which would in fact be required to win a Super Bowl. And the likelihood of the Vikings getting the number 1 seed in this new playoff system and having the first round bye is slim, and the likelihood of them winning 4 straight games culminating in a championship is even less, and to be honest, I would put the probability of that at 0 of ever happening, with Mike Zimmer as the head coach, to be clear. The best way to sum the Mike Zimmer era is almost winning or almost getting the job done, but not quite doing it and having a loss that simply should not happen in place of a win. And the best way to sum this up is to provide a statistic in a game the Vikings lost in 2020. They are, to date, the only team in the 102-year NFL history to accomplish this, so get ready and buckle up, because it's a doozy. They are the only team in NFL history to play a game where they run the ball over 40 times for over 200 yards, win the time of possession battle for 39.5 minutes to 20.5 minutes, outgain an opponent by over 130 yards, have the opponent not convert a third down all game, and still lose. Running the ball for over 200 yards and winning the time of possession battle by, no exaggeration, double the time that your defense is on the field should be enough to win, and you would think that. But this game specifically has exemplified everything about the Mike Zimmer era. Close but no cigar. And also, not surprisingly, this loss came to a team that had a winning record. And this type of game was, for me, at least as a Vikings fan, the turning point, and was when I realized, look, we are never going to win a Super Bowl with him as the coach, and these types of games have unfortunately become more and more routine since that Week 5 Sunday night game about a year ago. And actually 2 weeks before that, the Vikings had another game where they lost by 1 point, and it was after that Week 5 game that I said the Vikings should move on from Mike Zimmer, and a lot of people backlashed and said how much of an idiot I was, and here we are 1 year later, 1-3, and it is a similar situation. Since the start of the 2020 season, the Vikings have 3 1-point losses, and I don't know if any other team has that. I can't imagine they do, because let's be honest and call it what it is, guys. That's a very just Viking stat, and it's the Mike Zimmer era in a nutshell. And for Zimmer's sake as a head coach, it was kind of in a sense swept under the rug early on in his tenure for X or Y reason. We were a young team back in 2015 and 16, so it was more of like, hey, let's just build on for next year. But I do want to say, as much as I have bashed Mike Zimmer this video, let's go back to 2015 for a second. I 100% do feel bad for the guy, as he lost a playoff game, and this is on his resume, because of a 27-yard missed kick. And as good as Zim was that day, and as much as he deserved the win, unfortunately, the Vikings didn't get a win that day as Blair Walsh missed that kick. Now, obviously, I don't blame Zim for that and think, oh wow, that was the signal of start to things to come, because that certainly was not the case. And at that point in time, Teddy Bridgewater was, and this may be a surprise to people, but Teddy Bridgewater was a Pro Bowler in 2015, and having a Pro Bowl quarterback with the defense that the Vikings had in 2015, with what was borderline Defensive Rookie of the Year in Eric Hendricks in 2015, and a Pro Bowler in his second year playing in Anthony Barr, of course also having rookie Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin and Harrison Smith all in their prime, the future looked insanely bright, and that playoff loss was, at the time, viewed as a major stepping stone for what was supposed to be a Super Bowl in the years to come. As we know, that Super Bowl never came. One last comment about Zimmer is, and this was announced on a broadcast during one of the first 3 games, so I don't know when exactly it was. If you know when, please comment below. But it was announced for the first time since Kirk Cousins has been his quarterback. Zimmer and him together were going to sit down and watch tape and discuss once a week for 45 minutes how to dissect this or dissect that defense and what Kirk and Zimmer can both do better, basically holding each other accountable. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't that have been done the day Kirk walked in the building as his quarterback? This is a player the team has invested well over $100 million into, and Zim is just now sitting down to talk to him about these types of things. It's things like this that irritate the absolute hell out of me, because this should have been done years ago. What annoys me is coaches like John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, or Sean McVay, I am sure, did this the minute Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Matt Stafford walked in their buildings, so they knew this would be regular and routine, and that they would hold each other accountable, and that those are the reasons all three of these teams are the elite of the elite. And it's things like this that aren't even difficult that Zimmer could have done in his tenure to better himself and the team, because I really don't see any way the Vikings make the playoffs this year, given the 1-3 start and the schedule they have coming up. So I do think the Mike Zimmer era at this point lasts at maximum another 12 weeks, and that will be all that she wrote for his head coaching career. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.